Welcome to EMTV's In Focus. I'm Bradley Valenaki. Political parties play an important role in elections and the formation of government. For as long as we can remember, this country has never seen a single party rule, and coalitions have been formed, delivering governments from past and present. Will it change in the next election? Well, we don't know yet. A reform to strengthen the integrity of political parties and candidates awaits approval from Parliament. We're privileged to have with us in the studio today Dr. Allophones Gelu, the Registrar of Political Parties in Papua New Guinea. Dr. Gelu, welcome to the program.
Thank you. This was the work that the Registrar of Political Parties, we have worked on this since 2013. And in fact, by 2014, the revised organic law was ready to go before NEC, in which NEC approved back in 2014. And then, since then, it did not go to Parliament, okay, in the last Parliament, until we went into the 2017 election. And as required, with the processes in getting bills through to NEC and through Parliament, the registry has to work on this revised organic law again, which we did, and by 2019, everything was completed. And it was only last year that the revised organic law was printed and gazetted, and finally it is now in Parliament.
All right, so we've waited at least 2 governments for this document, yes, and it's still there.
Yes, that's correct. And I think, in fact, it's taken about 11 years. 11 years since 2010, when the Supreme Court made its decision that nullified a number of provisions within the organic law. And for us at the registry, as the agency responsible in enforcing and implementing this legislation, it is important that we need to review it. And we need to fill those gaps in which the decision of the Supreme Court removed those provisions. So we worked hard for the last 11 years, and we hope that by this year we should get it to Parliament for debate and its eventual passage until just before the 2022 national elections.
True. Now, so in terms of the changes in the revised OLIPEC law, as required by the court decision, what are some of these changes?
There are a number of changes that we proposed, but if you look at the revised organic law, the major components or provisions within the organic law are they're part of the current organic law. And then the second component are provisions that need a little bit of amendment. And then, of course, there were new provisions that we introduced. But one of the things about the revised organic law, the focus of the new revised organic law is on strengthening political parties. The focus is no longer on regulating the behavior of the members of Parliament. The Supreme Court ruled that was unconstitutional, that as public leaders, their behavior, decisions that they make, how they vote should not be regulated. So for the revised organic law, what we did was we removed those provisions because the Supreme Court has nullified them. So, and we have replaced them with provisions that are now focusing on strengthening political parties in Papua New Guinea to make them become strong democratic institutions.
All right, so democratic institutions, you spoke about making political parties understand this. At the moment, political parties in Papua New Guinea, do they understand that role they should be playing?
I think, to be honest, I think that is one of those biggest challenges that we've had with political parties. So since I came into the office, is to really clarify the roles and responsibilities of political parties in a developing democracy. And I think one of the things that I've discovered is that, we've inherited a weak party system. So when the organic law came into being, after it was passed back in 2001, the challenge was quite big, because we have these little groupings that only come out during elections, and after elections they die out again. This time, we have a law that attempts to build them that attempts to keep them afloat and not for them to disappear. And of course, there are a lot of things that political parties need to do in Papua New Guinea. That is the reason why our party system is still weak. So since 2013, we've worked with parties in trying to keep them afloat, and most importantly, to be engaged with them. So I think my office is responsible for that. It is our mandate to ensure that political parties don't disappear, that we must keep them with us and work with them to try and make things differently, or to ask them to do things differently, so that our main focus here is now to develop and also strengthen our party system in the country.
All right. So in terms of the parties playing their part to educate the ordinary citizens of what policies they have and to market themselves out there, have they done enough?
To be honest on that particular question, no, political parties have not done that. And that is quite evident if you look at the extension of or the outreach of political parties in our country. You know, if you want to describe how political parties have been formed in this country, what they have done is that they have been formed from the top, and what they are trying to do is to grow their roots down to the masses. It should have been the other way around. Political parties should have been formed down there at the grassroots level and then make their way up. So one of the things when people ask me that particular question, there are only a few political parties that we can say have grown their roots from down there and have made their way up. And one of those political parties is Pangu Party. Pangu Party, if you compare Pangu Party with other political parties in our country, Pangu Party came out of a movement, okay? And that is the reason why Pangu Party is still very much alive today. For other political parties, they did not come out from a movement. They did not come out from a pressure group. Okay, they were formed somewhere in Port Moresby, and now they're finding it difficult to try and grow their roots down to where the people are. So that's the reason why Pangu Party has lasted this long, since 1967. So that is our biggest challenge. So for us in the registry, we have come to note that political parties are not doing enough. They're not doing enough to strengthen themselves. And I think one of those ways in which they could do this is by making sure that they are known in the different parts of the country, and not only in one particular part of the country. If a party has won a seat in a particular electorate, we cannot assume that the entire electorate belongs to that particular party. That is not correct. You know, we need to go down there and find out that maybe there are other parties that also have support in that particular electorate. So I think political parties in Papua New Guinea, is what I think, but the fact remains is that they have not done enough to reach out throughout the entire country to capture support and also to create their bases.
All right. Interesting discussions there. Doctor, we'll continue with this after the break. This is In Focus. More of this discussion on the other side. Welcome back to the program. Our guest tonight, Dr. Allophones Gelu, the Registrar of Political Parties. Now, Dr. Gelu, continuing on from our discussions, before the break you spoke about Pangu Party. The Pangu Party nearly achieved a full one government rule back in the day.
It was after the 1982 national elections that Pangu Party won 44 seats. And, you know, for a party to do that, that's you know, it is quite exceptional in terms of our history. So Pangu Party did that, and it almost formed a government on its own. But then what he decided to do is to, you know, ask a smaller party to become his coalition. I think, remember that time it was the United Party. So I think in our history, a political party almost did that.
And that was under the late Sir-Michael.
And of course, it was under the leadership of the late Grand Chief Sir-Michael Sumare.
All right, so I think that's something that other parties should aspire to.
In fact, if you look at the period, because that time back in 1982, we did not have a law that regulates and governs political parties in Papua New Guinea. It was only after 2001. And in 2002, that was the first time that we had a organic law in place that that is mandated to regulate political parties in our country. But since then, what we've seen is that there is a high proliferation of political parties in Papua New Guinea. And that is something that is very different prior to 2001. If you look at the period from 1977 up to 2000. So suddenly there was a big increase in political parties. So this is something that, like for us at the registry, we are still trying to maneuver through and trying to find ways in which we could try and address this particular situation. Because right now we have 46 political parties. Out of the 46 political parties, 25 have members in parliament, while 21 do not have any members. So for those 25 political parties, about 10 of them have about 10, they have only one member.
One-man party.
Yes, so those are the kind of situation that we have. And because of that, what has also happened in 2002 election, 2007, 2012, and even going to 2017 election, the number of political parties in coalition governments since those years, since those elections, the number has increased. And the issue here is, how can you manage a coalition with more than 10 political parties in that coalition?
True. So looking at other countries of the world who have less amount of political parties and comparing that with Papua New Guinea, is that healthy?
Of course, you know, if you look at some countries in the world, especially countries in the Scandinavian region, they have more political parties in Scandinavia. You know, those countries in the Scandinavian region. However, the countries are so much stable, okay? Because I think in those countries, the political parties, they know exactly what their roles are. And also, those political parties grow their roots from down there, from the masses. And that is the difference with us in Papua New Guinea. That the number of political parties have increased, but yet those political parties do not grow out from the masses. They started off here somewhere, and they're now trying to find their ways down.
And most of the people don't know about these parties or their policies. Exactly,
and that is what we at the registry, we are trying to, to try and address this kind of situation in our country, because politically, it is not good for us to have these small groups who have political aspirations, but are not nurtured to an extent that they could grow themselves and they could seek. Because one of the things that we're asking them to do is that you have to build your foundation. And the foundation of a political party can only come out from the membership that they have. And that membership can in turn into the support that political party will get out of an election. It is not happening because parties don't have a foundation.
True. And I think one of the things that, we as Papua New Guineans also need to understand is that political parties come out of ideologies. What we stand for, what do we stand for, is another question that we should understand as well. But it's only through this that we know through political parties, but like you mentioned earlier, political parties aren't doing enough.
Yes.
Political parties voting along party lines versus individual members of parliament. Your comments?
Yes, of course, that is very, very important. So for us at the registry, what we are trying to do is to encourage our people to vote for political parties. Because political parties will become that bridge between the people and the government. That is what political parties should be doing. And that is the reason why it is important for our people to vote for political parties. And the registry has come out quite aggressively in the 2017 election, and we will do the same again this year. And that is basically giving out messages to our people to remind them that it is important for us, the voters, to vote for political parties, because after all, a political party will eventually form a government. So how can we go and just throw our preferences, here and there, and not voting for a political party that eventually will form a government on the floor of Parliament? So we now need to strengthen that link between the voters, political parties, and the government.
Because at the end of the day, when you're voting for a member of Parliament, you are adding the number to that political party,
exactly,
which at the end of the day, you put to rule as government.
Exactly. And there is logic in there as well. Because by doing that, then the people as voters will hold that government accountable. Okay? And of course, this government can also say that they have got the mandate from the people. The people have voted them into office through the election process. Right now, when we talk about mandate, the mandate is done indirectly. It is done indirectly on the floor of Parliament, whereby it is our representatives that put a government into office. So, but that is the kind of system we have. So we cannot really say that we should get our mandate directly. Our system is a representative system of government. Therefore, the people have given the mandate to their representatives to speak on their behalf, to vote on their behalf. But we can strengthen that mandate by making sure that the voters must vote for that party that will eventually form the government.
Interesting point, Doctor. Still on that, you spoke about our leaders, obviously, forming government. There is also a trend now that MPs are jumping ships, yes, from one party to another. You spoke about this recently.
That has been a concern for us at the Registry as well. And I think if you look at the whole reason why the Organic Law on the Integrity of Political Parties and Candidates was passed by Parliament in the first place was to address that. Because the biggest problem with us in Papua New Guinea when it comes to our party system was the problem of political instability. And that time, and I don't think anyone can argue about this, the political instability is caused by the lack of loyalty that is shown by our members of Parliament towards their respective political parties. And of course, this term of the yo-yo politics then came about. So the Organic Law, what the Organic Law did was, it put a stop to that. It put a stop to that by coming up with certain restrictive provisions in the Organic Law. And that is the reason why the Organic Law on the Integrity of Political Parties can be described as one of those very important reforms that totally transformed the political landscape in our country.
All right. This is In Focus. We will continue after these short messages. This is In Focus here on EMTV. Dr. Gelu, we've been talking about the work of the registry, and just before the break, the political parties. Now, going back to the revised OLIPEC, still awaiting approval, yes, from Parliament, of course, to become law. Now that it's still in waiting, that doesn't make your work much easier, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. And as I've said, it has been 11 years. So, I'm really calling upon the government and all the members of Parliament. This should be a bipartisan type of a thing where all the members of Parliament should all get together and pass this very important legislation. Like I've said, Sir Mekere Marota, the late Sir Mekere Marota, did this back in 1999, 2000. And, like I said, it transformed our political landscape in Papua New Guinea. So what we are doing now is that we are patching up those gaps that the Supreme Court nullified. So I'm really asking the government and Parliament, members of Parliament, to take on board this very important legislation so that it will enable the registry now to work with political parties. Like I've said, our focus now is to strengthen political parties in Papua New Guinea. So, that will be really good for us.
All right. So, Dr. Gelu, you spoke about the current number of political parties at 46. during the 2017 national elections, we had 45. Do you predict it to increase in the next election?
I think with the way things are going and with people coming in and visiting the office, it looks like the number will increase. And for us, over the years, people have accused the registry for allowing to register, more political parties. For us at the registry, we do know and we do appreciate the fact that citizens have the right to form political parties. So what we've been doing is that we are trying to work with them. Because I think one of the biggest challenges to many of these political parties is that it is not easy to form a political party. And it is not easy to manage a political party. If all these existing registered political parties are finding it so difficult to set up their foundation and to set up their support throughout the country, then it will not be easy for any other new political party that is trying to come into to register itself. It will be quite difficult.
True. You spoke about establishing oneself as a party. They had opportunities there during the LLG elections, which they didn't make use of.
Exactly, and that is one of those things that we are also trying to do. That political parties, their local level government is an election of a level of government that is situated right down there at the village level. So political parties have been encouraged. I think this is something that for us at the registry we have been doing, encouraging our political parties to also support candidates down at the LLG level. So from there you can grow your roots upwards. So, the conduct of local level governments in 2019, the registry went out to different parts of the country, and we found that political parties were not there. They were not too interested in local level governments, despite the fact that we've been making calls to ask them to go down there and support candidates down at the grassroots level or at the village level.
All right. So, Dr. Gelu, we talked about the several members of parliament jumping from one party to another, and all of a sudden party executives are getting paid from those parties that were didn't have active members of parliament. What happens to the others who don't have members? Will they be deregistered? What's the process? Okay,
what the registry is doing now is that I think we are putting about 16 political parties on notice. So a notice will be put out in the newspapers soon, asking them to explain to us why we should not deregister them. And this basically to do with mostly on issues of non-compliance. And the organic law on the integrity of political parties have certain provisions requesting political parties to comply with certain things, especially when it comes to the submission of their financial returns. So if you don't submit your financial returns to us, then we will deregister you. And the registry has done that in the past. We've deregistered political parties. So that is what we will do to these political parties, because at the same time you will see that the impact of these small political parties during elections has been quite wanting. They haven't made an impact. Some have put up candidates, their candidates have not won. They haven't put out candidates in different parts of the country, only in certain parts. Even there were some political parties who did not put up candidates at all. And after the declarations, they were asking those winning candidates that we have our political party here. You form a political party to contest elections. That is the most important quality or a character of a political party. That you form a party to contest elections and win seats in elections.
But at the moment, the registry doesn't have control over this.
At the moment, we don't have control because the law allows these little parties to be registered, legally registered. But under the revised organic law, there are some provisions that we've introduced to deal with such situation.
All right. So we are heading into the much anticipated elections next year. In terms of the registry's work, in preparation for this important exercise, what's on the agenda, and have you been empowered enough by government through funding to do this?
Okay, thank you. In fact, for us, for our 2021 work plan, we've identified three very important activities. The first is awareness. We still need to conduct awareness throughout the country for our people to know about these 46 political parties. There are 46 of them, and our people, when they go to the polls, must know these 46 political parties. That's one. Secondly, we'll be conducting workshops for party executives, especially the general secretaries. And there are certain things that we have to go through with them on. Things that they must know in order for them to make an impact in the election. And the third activity is the mentoring of women candidates. This is one of those areas that we've identified that, as you can see, after 2017, we did not have any women in Parliament. Parliament now does not reflect the composition of our society. We don't have any women. So you see, we do have women in Papua New Guinea, but they are not there in Parliament. So we need to make some changes here. So that's the reason why we've come up with this activity. And that is basically to monitor those women or mentor those women who have put their hands up to be candidates. So this particular activity is basically to prepare them. And we've asked various women groups. We've talked to our women in some provinces that you need to prepare early. It is quite a big challenge. So that is what we are now trying to do in terms of preparing our political parties and our women, and even conducting awareness in preparation for the 2022 national elections.
All right. In terms of funding, how much do you need to do this?
Okay, thank you. In fact, that has always been our main challenge. And, Registry has not been receiving enough funding. In fact, for us to carry out these three activities, we haven't received any funding yet from the government. We are now in March, February, we're going to March. So we are hoping that if some money can be given to us, we've put in our submission and our request to the government, so we are still waiting. But, we really need to be funded in order for us to do these kind of things. Because if we don't, then, the status quo would remain. And in politics, maintaining a status quo is not positive. It's not progressive. What we need in Papua New Guinea is for us to be progressive. And for us at the Registry, we are speaking from the political perspective. We have to be progressive in order for us to move on. If we don't have funding for us to do these kind of things, then the status quo would remain. And if it remains, then it will not be beneficial to us.
Very true, very true. Well, Dr. Gelu, it's been a pleasure having you on board with us on Infocus. We wish you all the best this year in preparation for next year and the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bradley.
Right, this is Infocus. If you have comments on our discussions tonight, do engage with us on our social page, Facebook, and follow us on YouTube. We would be happy to hear from you then. See you next time. Bye for now.